So here, você está sendo filmado, tá? I do speak Portuguese, but I understand some people here don't speak Portuguese. So I can speak in English if you prefer.
Yes.
I'll do that. Okay, if you have, by the way, my style is, I don't like to be a lecturer in a kind of formal sense. So it's more of a seminar. All my courses at UF have always been that. Even in large things, like large lectures, I've always invited people to put their hand up and jump in. So feel free at any time to pose a question or ask for some clarification. Okay? So this is not like, keep quiet and just, absorb all of it. It's kind of a journey.
And the slides are in Portuguese.
Actually, it's kind of interesting. This presentation has only been given in Brazil. We gave this at the Nobel in Belém and at UFPA in Bragança, in Pará. And that's why it's in Portuguese. I've never given it in English. So now I'm going to translate this for those of you who know Portuguese. As Marianne pointed out, I'm interested in cultural ecology. And in the last, I would say, 10 years, I've been particularly interested in this question of cultural forests or anthropogenic landscapes, or another term, domesticated landscapes. I have to confess that I'm really a naturalist from the 19th century. So I don't have cutting-edge statistical, GIS, or any of those sort of things. But what I really appreciate is I find a number of academic and research institutions that appreciate kind of a human natural history approach also. So I tip my hat to people who are sophisticated with GIS and remote sensing, political ecology. I think that's really cool. I'm just a little bit old-fashioned, but there's still a little bit of room. My passion is field work. Since I retired in May of last year, I've been to Brazil 3 times, spent 7 months in the field. That is where I want to keep going, so that's why I've lost weight. And my passion is talking with ribeirinhos. And when I go to the interior, I don't teach ribeirinhos anything. They're the ones that are teaching me. So it's a kind of I like to go and absorb, hang out with them. So it's a rapport that I developed. I'm not saying I'm brilliant at it, but I've developed a way of developing a rapport, respect for local communities. So they embrace me. I never go and do any kind of field work without having discussed initially with the community leaders what I'm trying to do, and if I can take pictures. And because of my, I would say, polite approach, they tend to almost always be very happy. Very occasionally they don't. I sense a sort of, not a hostility, but a sale, as they say in people. And so I respect that. I don't storm off. I chat a bit longer than that. But that's so if I could sort of compartilhar with you how to do this kind of field work is, and I'm not tense, I'm super laid back. I go in and chat. If I sense that somebody's not comfortable with what I'm trying to do in their environment, I respect that. And I chat some more, and then I don't go off and say, ciao. I mean, I say bye and respectfully head on to some other house. But it's rarely I have that. Okay? So going back, when I first started working in 1970, I assumed that much of the Amazon was virgin rainforest. I use these terms primary forest and second growth. And now if I can share what I've experienced over 45 years, cadê? Where is this virgin forest? I gave a talk at USP in 2012 at my Museo de Arqueologia. There was a zoologist from USP talking on this type of topic, although it was in PowerPoint. It was on anthropogenic forests and plants. And he said, I don't know, I've been studying monkeys up at Peru, and I think that's virgin rainforest there. I said, okay, well, it's a good debate. I wasn't aggressive with him. I said, has anybody done any archaeological surveys in your study area? How can you be sure there are no vestiges of human occupation in that area? So kind of backed off again. I said, no, look, I'm not trying to attack you. I think you've raised a very important point. When people say to me, well, how can you prove this is a domesticated landscape? It's obvious when it's recently recovering. It's much trickier the further you get into succession. So I don't use the term second growth anymore, because it's not second growth, it's 22nd growth or 32nd growth. Brazil has a term. They have juqueira, capoeira, and then capoeirão. We have this term second growth, so I tossed that out now. I use the term successionary vegetation. Now, the boundary between successionary and mature forest gets a bit blurred. And I have to confess, I'm not brilliant at figuring that one out. That's where the challenges are. But I want to tell you something that was really exciting for me. I was in 2012, I was on a Fulbright in the Upper Rio Negro, and I was with the Tuyuca on the Tikie. We went for a long hike in the forest to gather some carana plants, Moricha carana, which they use to cover their malocas. So we've been walking for about, they told me this, we're going to have to pernoitar there because it's about 6 hour or 5 hour hike. After about 3 hours, I suddenly saw a whole bunch of palms, which we call patua in Brazil, about 10 of them. And I thought, that's a palm they use to make juice, very rich juice, very calorie rich. So I said to my guia, who spoke Portuguese and Tuyuca, I don't speak Tuyuca, I said, how come we suddenly see a whole bunch of these there? And immediately response for that, moment's hesitation. I said, well, come from there. This was a camp. And they made the juice, like the Nucactin today in the Colombian Amazon, and they tossed the seeds there. So it sprouted up. So I thought, okay, so if this isn't virgin, then how much, where's the rest? See, again, this is tricky. So I think there's some exciting work to be done down the road where you have, a new generation of botanists and ecologists who do systematic surveys and perhaps detect either through the vegetation and or the transects in the soils, they dig down and see if they can find out. So I'm just tossing a few of these things. So over time, my feelings have evolved. And so I'd just like them to start here with this. How many of you here don't understand Portuguese? That's fine. Don't feel embarrassed about it. Especially if you don't see, if there's something written here and you don't understand it. But I'll translate it. But feel free to jump in. So this says here, domesticated. May I turn off the light? Yeah. Is that okay? Is that all right for you? So this says it means domesticated landscapes and the ethnobotany of wild fruits. He was term wild fruit problematic. And he said, well, what's the relationship? The relationship is people bring wild fruits from the forest or succession vegetation, which, by the way, is very important vegetation. I used to think the degraded environment is actually very rich in edible fruits. What happens to the seeds? Come home, they either ingest them, and then I won't go into details about how they come out, but they're dispersed. Okay, either in the fields or close to their house, or they make a juice and they toss the seeds in. So there's a tremendous connection here, which I want to show. And I'm going to focus on the Baixo Xingu and the Caxiuná area. Caxiuná is the Forest Nacional, the national forest at the lower Anapu area.
Can we just get a quick map check?
How does this work? Oh yeah, I'm going to put a map right now. Actually, yeah. How do I move this forward? Do I have to press hit it? Point it here?
Yeah. You have to click on that.
Which way? Oh, cool.
Great.
This is the right one. The right one. Oh shit. Oh, done. Thank you very much.
There's no point.
This is really cool. Oh my gosh. Well, this is a map. Obviously, I'm a geographer after all. And I want to show you the area that I'm just going to be focusing on. This is the Xingu, which is of course a real mouth because when the Ice Age ended, backed up the Amazon, of course, these with the Tapajos and Tefe and the Xingu. It's like a real mouth. Okay, I've studied this area. This is Cajazeiras about here, the bulk of the Xingu. And the Caxiuná area is this area here. So they're kind of very close in this group. But where Wagner did his study. Yeah. It gives you an idea. We're at the very lower Amazon. Do I point it here or anywhere? Anyway. And this is a satellite image of the area I'm talking about. This is your Baixo Xingu. So this area here and over here. This area here where I did field work. This study is based on my field work I did in fall and in the spring. So there's different ways where people are changing the landscape and enriching it with these plants. In English, this says spontaneous trees are left in their fields, the cultivated fields, when they're useful. So that when they do weeding, it's selective weeding. When the farmers plant their usually manual and they see weeds coming up, they may go back 6 months later. There's a team. But if they perceive it's a fruit tree or some other tree that's used for planting, they'll leave it. So what happens is when they abandon their balsa, when they abandon their field after they've harvested the manual, the regrowth comes back, and it's actually kind of a sort of an orchard, Indian or kind of certainly a answer. But here's an example. Pikia, most of you probably don't know what pikia is. Who's eating pikia here? It's cute. Where do you eat pikia? Oh yes, you know pikia. It's really cool, isn't it? The pikia is pretty cool. How do you know that? Whereabouts in Para? So you're going to get redeemed, don't you? Pikia is a giant forest tree. It has a very large fruit. It's really useful for two things. In the dry season, it drops its yellow flowers, which attracts game animals like paka. And people do what they call hunting, cassidysphere. They wait at night for the game animals to come feed on the flowers, and they turn on their lantern, their flashlight, and shoot it. Then, when the fruits drop, it's way too high to climb. Don't even think about it. We're talking like 40-meter high tree. The fruits drop. The ashes are cooked fruit. So here's one. This field here has been not completely harvested, but it's getting close to being abandoned within probably like a few months. So this one. Now, here's another thing that's really cool in Kashmir, in Kahizedo, I noticed. The Hipparinos do not completely deforest everything around when they're going to make their hossa, their field. They will leave a patch if they see it has useful trees in it, so that fire doesn't destroy them. Here's an example. Here's a pikia tree. It's in the Paramakaria. And you see what they're doing. This is a early succession vegetation here. This is a former manioc field. And the farmer, when he cleared this area, he deliberately left a kind of a buffer zone so that the fire didn't reach the trunk and kill the tree. So that's what I mean when I like to hang out with Hipparinos. I ask questions, and I'm careful about not trying to presuppose what I think the answer should be. You ask a question, sort of, then kind of fill in the details. If they think you want to hear certain answers, they give that answer. So that's kind of. So I asked a question like, well, how come that's like that? How come that got left like that? And he said, well, we protected. Me and my neighbors protected it. Here's another example. This one actually got a mixture of different things going on here. This is succession vegetation. I guess this here around, I would say, 8-10 years old, roughly. We have several palms like Inaisha, which is classic indicator of human disturbance. It's an entire fire-tolerant palm, which has edible fruit. And here you've got Brazil nut. Here's your Brazil nut here. And here's your pikia here. And here's your Inaisha here. So this succession vegetation has got some vestiges of trees, but they can see by the size of these. These aren't giant trees, so they're not. Those trees I'd estimate to be around 50 years old. And this is your pikia, has protective skin. Then what you do is cook. This is one fruit that's always cooked. You don't eat it fresh. Be careful to not to bite down hard. It has spines surrounding the seeds.
Oh,
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, be careful. Don't get excited. No. It's not. Take care. Exactly. I mean, it will hurt.
Okay, Pikia.
Well, in the upper Shingo, there's tiki, which is another species.
I know, yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah, and that's the people in the upper Shingo, the indigenous people there, they manage and actually make sort of orchards of tiki. As carioca, I forget the species. It's a much smaller tree. It's a cerrado tree. This is a rainforest tree, just to give you a heads up. So this is being cooked. And this is a mum here. She's peeling them, and then she's going to cook these. So this is not ready to cook up. We're going to calm down, we're going to cook first. And when she's cooked, there you go. So I was sitting in this Higuerino's house. This was on the Baixo, which is actually town. And she very kindly offered me some, this most wonderful, it's a kind of an oily fruit. Not oily in a disgusting sense. Being the manioc flour, which is a big thing. It's fantastic. So these people obviously value this tree, so they want to try and maintain it. Here's another thing I noticed talking about domesticated landscapes. This says here, plants brought from the floodplain to the terra firma, outlands. It's becoming increasingly clear to me as I study ethnobotanic fruits that humans have had a fair amount to do with moving around some of these plants. Not only in terms of increased density, like Brazil nuts, increasing castanhais, and making that to be, but they affect the distribution of some of them as well. It moves them from different areas to other areas. Wasu now made it up. Wasu is from eastern Arizona, so much on that. But what I want to talk about here is floodplain species that are usually associated with floodplain that are found on the uplands. Now, I've had discussions with botanists about this. I could be wrong in some cases. It's possible you can have a species that is found both on the floodplain and on the upland. That's certainly possible. But I also want to pose the other way, is that maybe before humans arrived, some of these were actually restricted either to uplands or to the floodplain. So again, it's more of a question mark as opposed to a outright declaration. So let me just give you a few examples here. Flechera, your arrow cane. One of the many, I've got a list of 25 species of inga that people eat. This is one. Jacetara, which is used for making baskets. TPT for sweet potatoes. Tapareba, yellow moonbeam. And Urukuri, which is related to sweet. Let's just have a look. This is a Cajezedo. Okay, what's going on here? This is a cultural forest over here. This is Macaobo, classic disturbance. This is an archaeological site and used to be a colonial village. This is just about 100 meters from the ocean. This area was occupied. And indigenous people brought this grass, this is flechera, because they use it to make primarily arrows. That's called arrow cane. And what happened here, this program of the government, this Minha Casa Minha Vida, they came in and they bulldozed this whole area. Cadês casas? That's the one story. They didn't come. But what did come was the flechera. They said, hey, Genji, this is a beautiful cleared area, let's go in there. And so they just exploded. The flechera took advantage of this bulldozed area. This is an archaeological site back there. And they just zoomed in there. This is what I think most people who work with this is the lugar, is the place of flechera. This is actually a picture I took in Gali in Peruvian Amazon. It's a floating ground somewhere. You can see here there was muddy. Its habitat is floodplains of silt-laden rivers such as like Solimois. Now going back to Cajezedo, they don't use bows and arrows anymore, but they use the stems of these guys, harpoons to jab small fish and shrimp. So this little kid here is going off, and they use the inflorescent stem to make their zagaya. It's going to spit this in, stick it down the tube, you see? Cleaning it out. pattern. So this is what these kids do from canoes. More the kids are actually than the adults. And by the way, I'm going to footnote here something. When I first went to the Amazon, I got kids in the Saidaking, Italian. But actually, I learned really they have a lot to contribute. It's not just the indoors, it's not just the old. It's not just women, the whole gender dimension. It's also age. The youngsters have their ethical knowledge. So this, I meet the youngsters in the canoe jabbing these shrimp, these small sardines, like this fish. And I said, where did you make them? You made them? From what? From flesh air. Where is the flesh air? They showed me where they get. Okay, so that's that one. Here's another example. Urukuri. This is on an archaeological site, the village Arakincho, behind Cajazedo. That's the archaeological site, Terra Preta. This, to me, looks clearly like it was brought there. Urukuri is most widely found on, the species name is Balarata. And you do find it occasionally on terra firma, always in the context of humans. Home gardens. So, yeah, somebody said, well, how can you prove that that was there? That was not brought there it was brought by natural force. Could be, but I think it's very likely it was brought there by. We're using the, maybe for I would say, the prawns perhaps, covering their houses. Fruits are not particularly good. Not like babasu, which I think is nice, which is great brush. Again, the kids showed me something. Here's an urukuri. What are they doing? Yeah. This small thing here, this is what they call an olive. This is an unopened prawn. We can't do that with that. So, show me. Apito. It whistles out. Okay, that's cool. Just showing me some stuff. And then made quite a noise. In fact, he scared the hell out of me. Because I didn't know who the hell was making that noise. I never heard it before in my life. So the kids make them to various lengths and make different sounds. So you almost have an orchestra. Small ones, medium, and long ones. And the kids do that, and they play games. It's kind of cool. Okay, so now here's something else interesting. This is something that most, I've had some Brazilian anthropologists say that I'm the first one who noticed this, actually. We know that people around their houses, they create what we call pomar or quintal, they have these trees around their houses, home gardens, we call it. We know that, but what was not known was that people doing the same thing around their huts they used to process manioc in Beiju. Now, and I think the reason it took a while for this cat wake up this core is that a lot of the casas de farinha are close to the houses, and therefore the orchards of the casa de farinha and the casa sort of blend one into the other. So it's sort of like part of the garden. In the case of Cajazedo, which is actually on stilts along the floodplain of the Xingu, they can't make casas de farinha close to where they're living. They have to make them up on the fiume. And their fields are widely dispersed, so most of them make their casas de farinha away from the village. And so around those processing huts, they've also established orchards. And when they abandon that site, the forest returns eventually to the forest. Here's just one example of a casa de farinha, casa de farinha. Here's the newer press. You squeeze the manioc flour from sacks. You've got here, you've got some mangoes, you've got some acai, and I made a lot of inventories. There was actually about 10 to 15 different. There was cashew, bacaba. Here's cashew. Here, see? Cashew, acai, mango, and a whole bunch of them. And when this area is please.
Why do they have processing base separate from their base?
No, in this particular case, it's because the tube, that's a very good question. The manioc tubers are quite heavy. And it's a heck of a hassle to bring them all the way. It's better to process them at the edge of the fields or close to the fields. Now, Casa de Fauna will usually last 10 to 20 years, so the fields may rotate around the Casa de Fauna. If your house is close to the fields, then you don't need to make them separate. They can be all quite close together. In this particular case, this was at least 3 kilometers from the village. Here's another Casa de Fauna. This is actually a bit further away to the Japosho, Blackwater River. This is a Quilombo. And here we have Ornithopsis morpora, a species of Bacabina, in Brazil, Suku with that. I think that there's an avocado there. Here's your Brazil nut. So here, there's been stuff going on here for a long time. This is a woodland here. And here's a newer Casa de Fauna. This one's only 5 years old. And so you see there's no giant trees, no big Brazil trees. But look at what's going on. You've got, just in this view here, you've got cashew. This to me looks like a bacaba coming up. Yeah, it's bacaba. And this is cupuaçu. And there's your acai. And there is your pupunha, also known as peach palm. So they've got, there you're starting to form like a little, what they call pomares. Okay, this is an interesting story. There's my gear, and my camera equipment. And kids often like to trail along, so they keep coming along, eating fruits and stuff. Now, as I was sitting down after a break, because I'm 66, so maybe once in a while I sit down for a bit. I'm out of breath. I just like to do all. So I suddenly looked, I knew it wasn't forest, old forest, but this is old second road. But I said, this is something strange. This is a lot of domesticated plants in here, such as right here, we have a pineapple, piña in Spanish, abacaxi. And off the top of my head here, there was about 15 other planted trees there. So I said to my gear, okay, what's going on here? How come there's some useful tree? I said, oh, well, this used to be Casa de Fauna. Where? I said, oh, just back here. And I suddenly saw some old degraded posts in it. But this was an example I was talking about. This was a Casa de Fauna right here. I said, yeah, I remember that when I was like a teenager, as we were walking through this forest.
That was 30.
This would be, he told me, he estimated this was abandoned about 15 years ago. 15, yeah. So here's another example. Maybe we've got this little alias or little islands, or say enriched segment. Succession based. And here's another Casa de Fauna. You've got mango there, you've got cupuaçu, but here's something kind of interesting I'm going to discover. Here's a tree here called Juru, Chrysobalanazica. Now, I was a little bit shocked to see that there, because this tree is actually a bush when you see it on the coast of Nigel and along the Bragantina coast. It's actually a bush, sand dunes. So I thought, what's it doing out here? And said, oh, well, we got seedlings from some people on the lower Xingu. Here's a tree, a plant that I think was found along the coast, taken inland by the Tupinamba or other migrations inland, and it's become sort of semi-domesticated. And inland, because there's no constant oceanic breeze, it's become sort of free.
What are they planting?
I think I have a good. Yeah, here we go. Good question. There's actually 3 varieties. There's black, red, yellow, and this is one in a quintal. This is not a Casa de Fauna. And they're collecting. It's collecting to eat. Chunk. This is Juru, actually it's Salinas. I wouldn't call this the normal or natural habitat for it, but this is where it's most commonly associated. It's clearly lives along water because the fruits float, so they are adapted fruits and animals. Here's the ocean there. and then you've got the dunes here, and then you've got these fruits. I think this one was taken. Nobody else has talked about that. I'm going to be, putting it out there, and I'm not going to say I'm right. This would be best. You figure out what's going on there. It's down here.
It's a big.
Turn out the light. Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Now it's beginning to clear. There's the water line, see? And there's Juru. So I said to my gear, this is the Bashu Kashuna. This is a Blackwater river. It's in a little bayment. So the water's calm. So it's kind of like hard to figure out where to ride it. It's really cool. No house here. So I thought, wait a minute. This whole Kashuna area is full of archaeological sites. So it's taken as a pure virgin forest like that. This was planted and descended a long time ago in the sky. This has outlived the old house. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. Here's another example. This one here is Nuhiu Prakupi in the Kashuna. It's Prakupi is way south of it. I mean, this is like a Blackwater River that's about 3 hours to the Anaplu River. There's no villages, nothing until we get to this one community, and that's the only place I saw one. So I asked Iberiño there. These kids here are climbing up to get to chomp. There's only one. And I asked an old person. I said, "How did this thing get here?" My parents brought it from seedling from Porto de Mos. Well, you have to kind of bushwhack across the forest, but then you connect it over to the sheep. He said it was planted there. So this is further indication to me then that this is an example of a tree that moved around, and therefore it's, there's one indicator in this particular area of landscapes.
Yeah. So do you? I mean, it's fruiting typically. Do you see seedlings around these things, or do you see these as like one-time?
That's a very good question. I have not seen seedlings around the base of these trees. Now, why that is, I don't know. I've not seen that. You see it around, for example, acai or cashew, mango, certainly. It's probably like crazy. Now, that's a very good question. But, it's curious that this is the only place that we can see Juru. I mean, for 3 hours of boat, there's no other Juru anywhere. And it's easy to distinguish this. That's the fruit.
When you talk about people kind of selectively leaving plants around their houses and stuff, do you also observe people like selectively feeding or trying to, for example, propagate seedlings from the plant that there was a little bit more flesh on the fruit, or like those things all happen, or is it all just by chance? Oh, we see a papaya, we leave that.
Well, I think there's some of that going on. Yeah, I get the impression that I'm doing a book on 200 species of fruit trees, and there's some selection. Nothing that's one I could was but fully domesticated plant. So there's a bunch of these plants that are sort of they're in this sort of, it's not no man's land. They're neither fully they're wild and they're domesticated, but there's something in it's kind of those things that are sort of on the first steps towards domestication, but not necessarily go the whole way. I had an archaeologist, Eduardo Neves, said to me, I don't believe that all of these will inevitably become full-blown crops. I think some of these are just, they go, there's a little bit of slight selection for making better, more fruit, or larger fruits, but not full-blown. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of these that are in sort of not no man's land, they're in sort of gray area, sort of transitional zone. It's a good question. What is curious to me is, if I asked about why are there three color forms? There's a lot of genetic variation there. Was it in some time in the past some indigenous groups like the red kind better than the black kind better? Nobody can answer that question. And I can't answer it. I'm just throwing out suggestions. Along the coast, I only see the red form in the Costa de Marajó. I only see the reddish or pinkish red. I don't see the black or the yellow. So why is it turning up inland and not along the coast? That could be a sign of selection. Could be. Okay, now I talked about plants being deliberately or inadvertently created around casas de gardenia, manual processing. What's also clear to me, and this has been noted in the literature for decades already by anthropologists, that around manual fields, some people plant. Not a lot, but some. And the most commonly planted here is cashew. This cashew is native to the northeast of Brazil and to the Cerrado. It was introduced into the Amazon, possibly by humans or during a dry climatic cycle when Cerrado penetrated the Amazon and left vestige population and sort of recruited by the indigenous people. So here's your manioc field here. This is old successionary forest in the background. And here along it, so I asked the Ribeirinhos, why do you plant cashew around here? Not a lot of it, maybe 5, 10, 15 or something. Just at the perimeter, not inside. And they said two things: for sombra or shade, and to also chupa, to suck on the fruits, because they're very juicy. A nice little break, like a snack break. They also use the nuts. Another one they use sometimes is bacaba, which just makes a very nice juice. You see this is a slash and burn here. And here we have a whole bunch of bacaba at Jopajor. Now I asked he's got manioc and abacaxi interplanted, that's pineapple and manioc. I asked him, what's going on here? Why are there so many bacaba? Question mark I have, is this quote natural or not? I don't read it. Turns out we're about 100 meters from a major archaeological site along the Jopajor, which is now, as I said, Kibon. But this area was being inhabited for thousands of years. I think one of these are vestige of enrichment by various occupations over long. That's an idea. It's not proven. Not proven. It's interesting though, as he clears the field, he leaves them. You notice that? Now, occasionally, some of them will succumb to a fire. See, here's one that's not made it, and this one over here that's made it. Another one over there. But not all of them survive when he does slashing down, but at least he got enough fruits there that maybe a few of them will fall around. Yeah. Now, I already mentioned that so-called secondary growth or succession vegetation is an important source of fruits. A lot of people have this idea that mature forest is where all the fruits are, and secondary succession vegetation is a degraded environment. Actually, that's not true. There's a lot of very useful fruits in second growth. So the mosaic of succession vegetation also creates another, I would say, more biodiverse plate. But we need to get away from this idea that you have to just preserve mata, just preserve jungle. People have been manipulating, moving around these jungles, changing their format of it, vegetation for a long time. So the mosaic of succession vegetation also furnishes important foods for their diet. Yeah, it is a weed. But weed, of course, has, what do you mean by weed? Weed, I mean, weed sprouts up. It's an early growth thing. But a lot of these weeds are actually useful. This one here in the Melastopaceae, there are many species of Melastopaceae. Little fruits that are very much eaten, mostly by kids. Why? Because they're often close to the ground and they're small. Adults are interested in banana, pineapple, bigger fruits. But the little kids are like formigas, they're like little ants. They fall out there, snack on this. And that's why I like to take them on my hikes, my gear, because they open my eyes to some of the biodiversity in the environment that I would overlook. So here's this little nipper, 8-year-old, plucking Aria Platina, which I would have totally overlooked. Probably stomped on it. We're going to a successionary forest heading towards some fossils. And they really enjoy it. And you'd never seen that before. You could talk. My gear said when I was a kid, I used to. I don't here's another one, the second growth. This is Maracujá da Capoeira. It has a blue flower. This is Passiflora nitida. A maracujá or passion fruit, Passiflora nitida, domesticated in southern Brazil, by the way. Widely cultivated in tropics now used. This one is not cultivated. This is a spontaneous one. And is widely spread throughout the Amazon and eaten both by children and by adults. Now, I can tell you that children are involved in dispersing these seeds. Not just the natural dispersal agent. Humans are natural too, okay? Part of the environment. And here's another one. Again, this little youngster sprouting down is going to pluck. See these fruits here? Red, like cherries, like small cherries. And this is also early regrowth. Only found in early regrowth, not in mature. If it wasn't meant for her, I would not have spotted that. Well, I've already talked about palms in the previous thing, but I just want to highlight just a few here. There are actually many palms that can so, and I just want to go through a few of them. Acai, of course, many of you are familiar with that. It's now a by acai juice here in the States. Tastes much better than them. They put some artificial sweet here in the States. But I love it. It's one of my favorite. Oh my gosh. Not just in Belen, but in the interior. I love to have acai with or without tapioca. But of course, acai is native to Euterpia oleracea is native to the lower Amazon. But humans have increased it around their habitation. And both on Varzea and on terra firma. They'll go on terra firma important as seedlings until they get established, then they're up and they're up. This is an enriched area here of acai, so this is well collecting. Now, Iraja is a Telea maripa. I mentioned that I showed you a picture earlier in a second in a regrowth forest. It survives fire very well. You can see this one is actually probably it's been trimmed back when the guy was clearing a sandu and plant manual. He hasn't planted yet. He would be a bit slow. His weeds are already taking over. But you can see this has been charred and it's doing just fine. It's very good. Back in the background, there's more of it. There's one, of course. Coming up, you can see I think it has some fruits coming here. You only find this really in successionary forest. In what you call mature or old forest, they get crowded out. And so, especially the kids, go and collect the fruits. And they're stuffing them in their pockets. And then they eat them, and then they toss the seed. Of course, there's some of those. You can see this is succession vegetation. It's not inside the deep, dark forest. Very useful. Also, people gather these to feed their pigs. It's not just children, but adults will also gather these, take them back and feed them. Mucujá, also called macaúba, it's the most widespread palm in the Americas. It occurs in Mexico, down all the way to Argentina. Southern Brazil is very common, macaúba there. And in various parts of Brazilian Amazon, it's either called mucujá or macaúba. Feathery kind of, feathery plants. It has an edible fruit. Very resistant to fire. You can see that, oh, this is going to die. No, it's going to make it. It's going to, in fact, this one here might even make it too. Well, actually, this is in action. Here's some making. So he's cleared this area to plant, but it's going to produce a lot. This is an area which was farmed before. You can see the palms are surviving very well. They can grow quite tall, so they can compete with the surrounding vegetation. And fruits, as I said, are edible. So they get them by, you have to be careful. This trunk has spines on it. Like tucumán, you very careful. You get a pole, or you get a baladera, had a pole, knock them down. In this case, they used to give you poles, so we snap them.
Is it the same as bocayuva?
It's the same. Yeah. It's different. They're different common names. Yeah. Bocayuva is, I think, we call that in pulses. Yeah. So there's bocayuva and mucuja and nacau. That's why we have scientific names. I think that's it. Okay, it's run out of gas. I think that's the last one. If it doesn't go forward, it means it's at the end of the road.
Yeah.